everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is June 23rd, 2026. I want to thank you guys all for joining us for iOS Mirroring 2.0 for professionals and installers. We're going to do a few things different during this training. Number one, of course, our usual trainings, we kind of balance between the professional and the user. This one is specifically, obviously, for professionals and installers. So we will be saving, as we always do, this training, but we will be including this portions of this training along with the installer license so that you can refer back. So two things that we're going to do different with this training is you are welcome to put your questions in the chat. Abby's going to write them all down for us. And if we answer them, then she'll cross them off. If she didn't answer them, then we will answer, we'll give you guys, of course, question and answer time at the end. We will be giving you guys a copy of the slides for this one because there's so many like reference slides for you, like this is the problem and this is the fix, that we wanted you guys to really have that so that you can be able to refer back to that. And then we are giving out professional development certificates as usual at the very end. Annie is going to drop all of my chats since I'm going to be doing presentation today. Bob will help us with a question and answer. Which, by the way, if you don't know Bob, Bob is our king of iOS mirroring. So you should all know Bob. And Nachum will also be jumping in. If there's anything that I missed or he wants to give some clarifying points, Nachum will also be joining us. So just want to let you guys know just the difference about the chat, that we're going to kind of be holding it to the end. All right, shall we get into the fun stuff? Let's do it. Let me share my screen. And let's do some iOS mirroring. Now, um, we are going to do our best to go through all of the most common sticking points. But if we don't cover your sticking point or problem that you run up against, again, put it in the chat or save it to the very end, and we will cover it. Right. Here we are, iOS mirroring for professionals. Perfect. Okay, a lot of you know who we are. Just want to touch clearly, just in case someone is reviewing this online. We are a small but mighty care team. We now have 7 speech pathologists, 2 OTs, that number has increased, and our programmers / engineers has increased as well. And of course, as you guys know, we are focused entirely on supporting people with ALS, their caregivers, as well, of course, professionals and anyone who is supporting people with ALS. And most importantly, our services are always free. Now, something a little bit new since we've really talked last, of course, we launched our New York initiative. So if you don't know about that, please check us out because we do have a New York initiative now. All right. Okay. Too many windows open. Okay. So today, as you know, we are here to talk about iOS mirroring. Now, we've done iOS mirroring before just in general for our presentations, and we do have that available on our website as a review. But today, I really want to take the time to talk to you who are actually setting up these devices and getting them up and running and getting iOS running. And so I want to talk about that. If you need any resources related to iOS mirroring, like you want to share with one of your clients, or maybe you are one of our partners but don't have an installer license, Annie's going to drop a link for you right now that brings you to our iOS mirroring page. And honestly, there is a ton of information on that iOS mirroring page, including a link to our updated installer guide, as well as if you are working with a vendor that wants to start doing this for profit, if you're nonprofit, or if you're just someone with ALS, as well as just providing information. So please, please, please check that out. Because that has a ton of information. So we're going to go through 5 topics today. So we're going to start with just some simple setup information. We're going to talk about some troubleshooting during setup, some troubleshooting during use, as well as if I haven't filled your minds too much by that point, we're also going to talk about customizations. And then, kind of as a last carrot and a gem, I'm going to also talk to you about shortcuts. And we've alluded to this in many of our trainings, but haven't really showed it or explained it further. But here's the truth. The truth is that we could have an entire presentation just on shortcuts. And maybe we will based upon your feedback, but we're going to give that to you as just a little carrot towards the end. All right. So one of the first things I really want you to consider is, people will see iOS mirroring oftentimes through various different methods. Either they've come to office hours, or they've heard or seen somebody, or even got to see our training. Um, but the thing is that they will oftentimes come to that before their device is even set up or they even know how to use eye gaze. So I would like you to consider three things before really kind of introducing and or starting iOS mirroring. So make sure that they have their eye gaze calibration is accurate for a small to a medium target. Now, I'm going to say small to medium, but we can get a little bit finicky in there a little bit further, but just kind of keep that in mind. Also make sure that they have consistency in their accurately selecting targets. Again, we don't want them to be frustrated when they're working with smaller targets. And here's a really big one is that they have knowledge of a desktop access. Now, desktop access can really be many different things, which is kind of why we wanted to leave that wording open, but make sure they have an understanding of that. All right. So this I cannot say enough over and over and over again, these three things. And I can tell you that our team, even though our team has been doing this for, a couple years now, and we do it all day, every day, we miss one of these three things, and Bob consistently reminds us. The most important thing is ensure that your instructions are up to date. Annie has a link for that, so she can drop that for you. So always make sure that your instructions are up to date. This changes frequently. So when Bob will find, for example, a change due to a change in iOS kind of operating system or one of those sorts of things, or we find a bug, or to be honest, Bob fixes a workaround or makes something easier, these change. So it's really important that you don't print these and hold on to them. Always go back. Now, the next two things are also as equally important. Follow every single step carefully and do not skip any steps. And if you find that you're working through a step and you're like, wait, that isn't there, that setting isn't there, then that means that you missed something and you need to go back because many of these steps and settings that you're going to be asked to do will not show up until you did the previous one in order to make it happen. And this is where I get in trouble all the time. So do not forget these things. I cannot say this enough. Okay, so many of you have already done an installation. If you have not done an installation, I want to just show you a quick little video on how it all starts. So let's go ahead and watch this together.
In this video, we'll walk through the installation process for Bridging Voice's iOS mirroring program. Once you've run the iOS control download from the email you receive or from a link on our website, you will be prompted to accept our license agreement, and then click Next to continue. Click the link on the installer screen to run the Apple Mobile Device Support installer. This is a required.
And I want to make sure that everyone is orienting themselves. This is the communication device that we are looking at right now. Okay, so we are downloading this onto the communication device.
Component that allows your computer to communicate with the client's iPhone or iPad. Click Open File from your download folder once it's done. Nothing will open, but it will be installed, and you can then close out the browser window and click Next on the installer wizard. Be sure that Create a Desktop Shortcut is selected and click Next. Then click Install. Once it finishes installing, you can click Finish to close the iOS Control Setup wizard. Next, open the iOS Control shortcut from your desktop. Enter your installer code in the box provided. This code...
Oh, geez. I apologize. I'll get us back there to where we were.
Confirmation email when you receive a license. This ties the installation to your account as the professional setting up the device. Then enter the client's email address in the end user email box. This is the person who will be using iOS mirroring. Click Register. Once complete, you will see a pop-up telling you which email to check for activation instructions. The client will need to check their email and click on the confirmation link. This authorizes and completes the installation. The installer will also receive an email notifying them that their installer license was used to install iOS Control. This is a helpful way to keep track of your installs. You are now ready to open iOS Control on the client's device.
So, great thing about this is all of those steps were in fact included in your setup instructions, okay? But I just wanted to go through those one more time because oftentimes that gets a little challenging. Now, here's the thing. I am not going to go through the entire setup guide. We would need like a half day session in order to do that. And considering we're all over in different places, that would be a bit of a challenge. So what we're really going to talk about here is we're just going to go through some kind of hot points or points that we find are sticking, okay? So our first sticking point that we find is sometimes people don't understand how to input their installer code. So that is what we just watched, okay? Here is another sticking point. So wireless is available. Okay, and you will see in your installation guide that there are wired instruction and wireless instructions. So wired instructions are you are using an Apple data cable to plug from the phone directly into the communication device. Now, some people, that isn't what they want. So we do have a wireless setup option as well, and you will find another page of that for the installation, and you do need to follow those for the wireless setup. So some important points that we want to talk about with that, and I won't get into too much of the like nitty-gritty of the technical side of things, but beware that wireless setup can be a bit tricky in a facility. It presents its own challenges. And the reason behind that is because there are often multiple IP addresses. Okay. And if there are multiple IP addresses, then a manual submission is required. All right. And there are instructions for that in the installation guide. Okay. Wireless and wireless. Wired and wireless, and this is a sticking point for wireless during the setup that we want to make sure to bring forward. Nachum, do you have anything else you want to add to this? Nope, you're good. Okay, perfect. All right. I skipped a step. Let's look at this one. Okay. This is, I think, the biggest area where people have a tendency to make a very simple mistake that causes a big problem to being able to use their iOS mirroring. It has to do with calibration. All right, so we're going to watch a video on this because I can't say this enough how often this step seems so mundane but gets missed and causes the biggest amount of issues. So let's watch this together.
In this video, we'll show you how to calibrate iOS Control for Bridging Voice's iOS mirroring program. Start by opening the Settings window in the iOS Control panel on your computer. Inside Settings, navigate to the Setup tab. Find the Calibrate option. Before clicking, be sure that the client opens the BV Mirror app to the home screen on their iOS device. This is the only screen that will allow you to successfully calibrate. Then select Calibrate. Watch as the cursor moves from the upper left corner to the lower right corner of the mirrored screen. That movement confirms the calibration is running correctly. Calibration takes a few seconds, and then you'll see a BV screen broadcast pop up. Once that shows, you can close the settings window. The client is now able to use any app on their iPhone or iPad and can use the iOS control window to go to the home screen or swipe between screens.
All right, so you saw the mouse marching from the upper left to the lower right-hand corner. Um, and you saw it happen a couple of times. Carly just helped us with that so that you would get a chance to see it. It doesn't do it repetitive times, marching from the upper left to the lower right, but we just wanted you to see it. Now, here's the thing. You can't have anything overlaying that window. Okay, so if a pop-up comes up or something pops up over the top of that window, it is not going to work. And we're going to talk about that a little bit further with some nice pictures. But again, most important, calibration can only happen on that one screen. All right. So we've done our setup. You've got your instructions. We have talked about a couple of sticking points. And now we're ready to start. We're doing our setup. And we're working through our setup and we start to have some issues. So this next group of troubleshooting, I want to share, we've kind of collected these from our team as a whole as to what areas we have come into challenges with. So we want to share those with you. And you're going to see pretty quickly the reason why we're going to give you a copy of these slides. So this is the exact reason, because we have the cause of it and the fix of it. And we want you guys to have a quick chance to be able to go back and look at this. And in all of these, I have tried to include a picture to kind of help give you guys a reference. Most importantly, the part in which that has the settings, that has the swipe left and swipe right and home, this is what we call our user interface, just in case you guys happen to see that or hear these words. All right. So here is a huge reason why the mirror is not showing. It is because the cord that you are using to plug in between the communication device and the computer is not a data cable. And this happens all the time. So you will order one from Amazon and then it says it's data cable and it comes. But there is only one surefire way to know whether or not you have the correct cord. It is if you hear this sound. And that is plug in and that is unplug. Okay. So that sound tells you that you have the correct cable. If you do not hear it, you know you have a problem. But here's another thing. If you constantly hear that da 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 da, that tells you that the cord is not seated all the way, or you could have a faulty cord. We had somebody where if you just wiggled the cord, like it would stop the mirroring. So again, if you're hearing that sound, it's telling you that that cord is not a good connection. Another reason why the mirror not be showing may not be showing is if you're on a wireless connection, so it's not a cord, you're doing wireless, you may find that your wireless connection is not stable. So ensure that the communication device and the iOS device are connected to the same Wi-Fi. Okay. And you can check that within the phone Wi-Fi IP settings, as well as you can rescan for the IP address. You're going to find that IP address. You can make sure that they're connected under the settings, mirror tab, and then here where the IP address is. Let's move on. That means I was unplugging. All right. So one of the things I want you to notice is look here on the right-hand side where I have settings, and right below it, you see where it says dongle verified. Bob has done a ton of work within the last few months to give you guys as much information as possible to really help you to know what the issue is so that you can then refer back to this and find out what truly is the issue. So for example, if in this red area, it says dongle missing or needs firmware update. So first thing is the dongle is not plugged in. So make sure that your dongle is seated fully into your USB. Okay. The second reason that this may come up is the dongle is not updated. And in order to update the dongle, you're going to go to the UI, which you see at the top, the user interface. You're going to go to settings, to the setup tab, and then update your dongle. Super important. All right. Down below, you see, here's another cause. Dongle, iOS Bluetooth not connected. This is common, and the Bluetooth can become disconnected. So if someone was able to use their device and now is not able to use their device, again, these nice messages are really helpful. So the dongle may be plugged in, but it's not connected to the iOS device. So the fix for this is ensure that the Bluetooth is on, for example, on the phone, and make sure to pair the iOS device to the Bridging Voice AT. So on the right-hand side, you can see a copy of my iPhone screen. Bluetooth is on. And then do you see where it says Bridging Voice AT not connected? That tells me that it is not paired with my dongle. So I need to make sure to get that connected. Very, very important. Okay. Now, do you remember that lecture I gave you when we first started, when we were looking at the installation instructions? I told you I was going to say it many times, and I'm going to say it again. When you're working through your setup, okay, if you do not find a setting listed in the instructions as though it's missing, number one, make sure that you have the most up-to-date instructions. And number two, go back and check in that you completed each step in order because many steps aren't going to show up until you did the previous one. Okay, so it's very, very important. And this is being done on the iOS device. I am guilty of this all the time, of forgetting a step, and then the one that I'm looking for is not there. All right. So, next common situation is the calibration has failed. Calibration usually fails for a couple of reasons. Number one, you skipped a setup you skipped a setup setting when you were going through the process. So again, go back to the phone or the iOS device and make sure that you completed each step. The second reason is that you attempted to calibrate outside of the BB Mirror app. So I have some very clear instructions here for you. But again, we're talking about the settings and then we're talking about calibrate. This is super important. On the left-hand side of the screen, what's behind this screen broadcast pop-up is the Connect BV Mirror screen. You cannot calibrate if this pop-up is here on the top. So you must touch above or below to get rid of the screen broadcast pop-up. It must look like the one on the right-hand side, nothing overlaying it. Okay, very, very important. This is a very common thing that people miss in the process of calibration. So I can't say it enough. Okay, I'm going to give everybody a break. There's a lot here, and and I understand that, and that's why we are going to be giving this so that you guys can come back and review these in the future. Okay, let's troubleshoot some use while you're using it. What issues are we commonly seeing? Number one, and I have to tell you, the most challenging slide I have ever made at the history of bridging voice is this slide right here. I know there's a lot of information on it, but I can't tell you how important it is. So some people are having issues with scrolling. Okay, you're attempting to scroll and it is not working. All right. Now, I want you to stop for a second and look at this. We have this broken down into two separate areas. The first one is Tobii TD Control, and the second one is Smartbox Grid Computer Control. Now, this is for all users. This is including Alpha Core and Text Talker and Smart Talker. They have the computer control built into them. So in order to adjust the speed of the scrolling, you have a couple of options. Number one is in the UI under iOS control user interface, under settings and scrolling, you can see the tortoise and the hare, and there's a slide bar, so you're able to adjust it there. If you're still having issues, for example, and it's still not working, then you need to go back to the iOS device, go to your settings and your scrolling tab, and make sure that that pointer is towards the center. As Bob was sharing with me today, if you, for example, have it all the way down at turtle, if you try to bump it all the way up to hair in our user interface, his programming can't overcompensate that. So again, we want the setting in the iOS device to be in the middle, and then you can use the slide bar. Now, for Tobii Communicator 5 Windows mouse toolbar. So the first one was Tobii TD Control and Grid Computer Control. The second group is Tobii C5 Windows mouse toolbar. This is oftentimes like the vertical mouse toolbar that you'll see. You need to do one step, and that's why it's highlighted. You must check the convert keys to mouse wheel. You will see it up in the top screen under the settings. You will notice it is not checked. You do not check it for TD control or grid computer control. You must check it for the Tobii C5 Windows mouse toolbar. You just need to check it. Okay. And then again, you have the same controls just like we explained for the other one. That is a lot. But like I said, the hardest slide I've ever made in Bridging Voice is that one right there. But important for you guys to have that information to refer back to. Okay. While using the iOS mirroring, some people may report to you that they are not able to listen to iTunes, some videos on YouTube, and some Spotify, and even some social media. Now, we cannot fix this. There is not a workaround for this. This is a licensing agreement that stops songs and videos from being mirrored or played. Okay, so we cannot get around that. So iTunes is not going to work. But here's the thing. You still have access to the phone, but it's just not going to mirror. So that just doesn't change that part. Okay. Along those same lines, there are some apps that, or some websites, like especially like a banking app or something, where the mirror on the communication device will all of a sudden go black. Now, if they look over at their phone, because we do recommend, to have them side by side so you can see them, you look over at your phone and you can see the website or you can see the app, but it won't mirror. And again, we're talking about licensing agreements and security restrictions. And there is not a workaround, but they can view it on their phone or their iOS device. They just can't view it on the communication device. Okay. If it is mirroring, but you don't see an arrow or a circle. So arrow or circle is what you would see running around the screen as you are, for example, if you're clicking, you would see the arrow or circle go to that location. There are multiple different options for that, which are all included here in this guide. I won't go into each of them, but because many of these we have covered before, but just want to refresh that these are some options to address those things. Calibration is not accurate. There are a couple of options for this. Less frequently, the phone orientation has changed. And again, Bob has done some amazing changes within iOS mirroring from 1.0 to 2.0 to really address this issue. But making sure that you recalibrate is an option, get the phone back into the correct position as well. And a lot of people don't realize that they think, if they just lay it down flat, that there won't be an issue, but there is a little bit of a gyroscopic option to that. Another reason is that you skipped a step or the setting is not quite right. So again, go back to that installation guide and go through the order again. Okay, we've gone through the hard stuff. So those are the things that you might frequently encounter. Now, let's talk about some of the features that are available. And the features that are in this little program are pretty amazing. There's so many of them. And we're only going to just touch on a few today. Because like I said, we could do a training on almost all of these features. But let's go through a few that we've alluded to but haven't dove into. Again, just to make sure that you guys are aware that these are available. All right. So new to the installation guide, if you have an old copy of the installation guide, this is a new page that Carly just put in. So we now have a page within our installation guide on how you can set up multiple iOS devices, which is awesome. So like phone and iPad, for example, somebody going back and forth. But here's the thing I need to make really, really clear. You can't use multiple devices at the same time. You are going to be switching between the two. So going from iPhone to iPad. You are not going to have iPhone and iPad on the screen at the same time or at the same moment. Again, here's the QR code for just this page, but it is included in the installation guide. So anytime you grab it, it is now here. And for our team, here you go. You may not know about this as well. So thank you to Carly for making this look beautiful. Okay, now here is a little present that we would like to give to you today. And again, um, Annie has the links to these and she is going to be sharing these. But here's a little point that I want everyone just to kind of take a breath that I want to share with you. You are used to seeing the user interface, for example, up in the left-hand corner of the communication device. You've got the iPhone running right down the center of the device. And oftentimes on the right-hand side, you have a mouse toolbar, whether it be a grid toolbar or a communicator toolbar. Now, TD Control obviously doesn't have its own toolbar that just stays there all the time, but you're used to having this. And what you're used to doing is telling your client, for example, um, left click on the swipe left in the user interface. But here are two toolbars, two mouse toolbars that already have the user interface built into it. So you don't have to use that user interface. You don't have to leave it up there. You can drop it down and minimize it. And then as you see in the bottom of each of these toolbars, in the light gray, here we go. There's your home screen, there's your swipe right, and there's your swipe left, already built into a nice toolbar for you, which again means that you can drop that user interface out of the way and just have one bar to work with. Those are the links. Now, Bob and I have already been talking about adding some other features into these toolbars, but we wanted to get you guys started. So don't be surprised if in the future you go to grab these toolbars and in fact, they are in fact, you've got some other features involved with them, but these are to get you started, which is lovely. Okay, here's another really powerful user interface customization. There's two here. The first one is that you can change the size or move the position of the user interface. So if you have someone who is not using the toolbar that we just shared with you, and they're going to use their own, or for example, like TD Control plus the user interface, you can in fact expand the toolbar or the user interface to make it much larger. But here's the part I always forget. You need to make sure that you go to your settings, and from your settings, go to the miscellaneous tab and save the layout. So you can decide, for example, where you want the screen mirror to come up on your screen. You can decide where you want the user interface to be if you're using the interface and what size the user interface is. Just remember to hit save layout because I always forget it. Don't forget that. Another option too that can help individuals, for example, who have visual impairments, you can also use a grayscale as well. And I just wanted to share that that as well. Is that one is in the settings in the mirror tab and then grayscale. Okay, we've gone through setup, we've gone through troubleshooting, we've talked about customizations, and here is something that we really want to show you because we've alluded to this so often, but I have to admit, we're only going to give you just a little nibble with this because um, the issue is that we could do an entire training just on this. All right. So let's go check out shortcuts. Now, first of all, let's talk about what we mean by a shortcut. So a shortcut lets you automate a task by linking together multiple actions. Now, there are two forms of shortcuts. We have shortcuts within our iOS control user interface, which is here. You can program shortcuts. So for example, I have a shortcut programmed for my Gobi thermostat to check on my tortoises outside or answering a FaceTime call. So again, you can click on that shortcut and it will answer a FaceTime call. So we won't go into how to program each of these, but we could talk about that in the future. And then there is also the Apple shortcuts as well that are built into Apple. So we've got two separate things here. Okay, we're going to do quite a bit of preface in this because there is a lot of magic. According to me, it's magic. According to Bob, it's programming. But according to me, it's magic. There's a lot of things happening here. Kat made this shortcut for one of her clients to make sending a text much easier. Okay. So, what is going to happen is I want you to pay attention to the mouse toolbar that Kat has created on the right hand side of the screen. Okay. This is what's really going to show you what's going to happen. So the first thing that she's going to do, we're going to talk through this because it kind of happens in quick sequence. The first thing she's going to do is she's going to go to the keyboard, which you're going to see is going to bring her to not like the usual Microsoft or the Toby on-screen keyboard, but this is her full communicator keyboard. And you're going to notice a button at the top about texting, okay? And I'm going to stop and start this so that we can talk our way through it because there's a lot of really cool things that are just kind of happening out of magic. All right, so let's start by watching Kat do this. So again, we're going to go to the keyboard to start. So here she is opening the keyboard. Notice she's going to go to contacts and she's got multiple contacts and each one has the name plus a comma afterwards, which is really important. And now she's going to type her message. Which apparently is a very important message. She's going to close her keyboard. She's going to go back to that mouse toolbar and she's going to click send text. Now, all of these things are going to start happening. Now, she's not doing this. This is the shortcut running, telling it what to do. This is automatically being entered again through that shortcut. It's clicking on done, and there it goes. Everything happened at once just from that one click, which was send the text message. So the information came from the keyboard. It copied to the clipboard. When she hit send text, it automatically knew who she wanted it to go to because she had Bob Paradiso, comma, and then it started to run the entire script of the shortcut. So with one click, it did the whole thing. Now what Kat is doing is going to go in and manually show you that it actually happened. So the shortcut script is done, and now she's showing you that it actually happened. So this is what she's showing us, this process now. Um, sorry. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so now she's going to left click. She's going to go into her text messages. And you can see there her text message to Bob, and you can see Howdy Partner did go through and it went just as the script had requested. So it used a combination of our shortcuts and Apple shortcut together. There was a lot of magic that just happened in that one little video. All right. Okay. That was a lot. We intentionally left some extra time today because of questions that may come up or feedback or anything else that you guys may have. But super important things I want to go through. Please remember that open office hours is every Tuesday. And I can't tell you enough how beneficial these are. If you have any questions about mirroring, if you want to know if a shortcut could be made or how to make that happen, join us. Remember, your pals can join us. You as a professional can join us. You can just come and go. You can come and stay, whatever you need to do. We welcome any questions about communication here at office hours, which you will find again, our professional team, our technical team, as well as our ambassadors who are using iOS mirroring in ways that they teach us in new ways every day. So here's the URL. Annie dropped the link as well to be able to sign up for those office hour reminders as well. Okay. If today didn't give you enough amazing things to think about, and we hope that you're open for more, we do have upcoming trainings coming. We have a communication crash with Eddie. We have preserving connections with Abby, I think. Nope, not Abby. Um, Annie. It's Annie that's doing that one. And then we have, or Annie's doing the ALS and eye tracking. So we have our trainings coming up. So please join us. Again, you can register using the QR code here, as well as you can find these all on our website. And if you haven't been to our website lately, our website has been updated. Karina and Carly have put in a ton of work and it looks absolutely beautiful. So please go back and check it out. Um, our recorded trainings, including this one, are you can find them on our website. Again, really easy access to that, and as well as on YouTube. You are all going to get a copy of this training along with a copy of the slides that you guys saw today, as well as all of the links that Annie handed out for you. If you are here for professional development, I do ask that you stay through the Q&A to the top of the hour. Annie's going to drop the link for that. Remember to fill that out today because Devora is super quick and she will send those certificates out in the morning. As always, you can support our work through a donation, as well as a testimony. And even for professionals, we love having testimonies on how we have impacted your ability to work with people with ALS. We would absolutely love that. And lastly, before we get into question and answer, I do want you to know you are always welcome to reach out to us, info@bridgingvoice.org. But I also want to give you another email, which is iosmirroring@bridgingvoice.org, which gets directly to Bob. So he will respond to you, the gentleman with all of the answers. Speaking of answers, let's see if we have any questions. Let me stop my share. Please take yourself off mute. You can turn your cameras on. Do you have any questions? Have you seen any troubleshooting that you need help with that we didn't address today? Or do you have any questions about anything that you want to see further?
Trinity,
Um,
there were a couple in the chat that I can read quick to
that would
start
be
with.
great.
Amy asked, how do we know if we have an up-to-date iOS control to put on our client's computer? I got mine a while ago. Could it be outdated? So I think she means the installer.
So I
Um,
would say almost for sure it's out of date. Just because different iOS versions come out and different bugs come out that I would say a new version's coming out, a couple times a month. So it always pays just to re-download it. There's almost no reason not to just re-download it each time.
So, Amy, I'll send you the download link in case you don't have that in your email right now. And then what we recommend to everyone is every time you're installing it is to not save the file on your desktop, but to use that link. That way you're always sure you have the most up-to-date version. So I'll send you that link right now.
Perfect. Thank you.
and that's for the downloader as well as the instructions, both. Don't save either one of those. Please get those every single time.
And then Lisa wanted to double check. So if I'm understanding correctly, you can change the UI size, but not the mirror size, correct?
Bob?
So what I would say about that is, so the phone, it's a portrait phone, and often our computers, including like let's say a Tobii or whatever eye gaze device, it's a land that's a landscape device. So the phone, there's this natural limit where when you stretch it tall, you're hitting the top and the bottom, and that's sort of your limit there. You can't go more sideways without stretching out the image of the phone, and it won't look right. You need to keep the aspect ratio, right? So you're going to hit a limit, right? So that you can at least go to that size. You can go smaller if you want, if you have a reason for that. We have some people who can't eye track all the way down and will actually shrink it so they can, easily hit all the way top to bottom of the phone. But regardless, whatever size you choose, you should know that there's a feature, this right click to zoom. So we have a feature where if the person sends a right click, and they can with TD control send a right click, they can with grid, they can with Windows access, they can send a right click. It will, so it's kind of a two-step selection, right? So if they need to get into some small area precisely, they can send a right click, the view will zoom in into that area, and then they can make their left click precisely where they want it. And that's separate from whatever zooming is in grid or TD control. You always have those that are built in. That doesn't change.
Does that help, Lisa? Or do you want to ask a follow-up question for that?
Oh, hell, you know me by now. There's always a follow-up question.
That's why I
That
offered
was
you
a
to open it
rhetorical
up.
question. Okay, so essentially you have to, because in some spaces, like if you're on a Windows desktop and you right click, you get a menu as opposed to it zooming. So how do you tell it you want it to zoom versus give you the menu that typically comes up when you do right click?
Sure. So when you have this feature turned on, and I guess just to say it, it's in our settings screen, which we had a few pictures in the presentation, the settings screen, and it's in the mirror tab. There's a checkbox for right click zoom. If you have that turned on, your first right click will zoom in. If you really wanted to make a precise right click, let's say, which you can do on an iPhone, you can make a right click and it pulls up a context menu. If you wanted to do that precisely, you would do that right click, it would zoom in, and then your second right click will make the right click exactly where you choose. It won't continue to zoom. It will make a right click at that point.
Okay.
And Lisa, I can show you really quick where it's at. Okay, are you guys seeing my UI now?
Yes.
Okay, so under the settings tab, do you see right here where it says right click to zoom? Okay, that's where you would turn that feature on
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
under that right click to zoom, which can help with visual issues as well as accuracy. Both of those options, of course, is a good reason to use right click to zoom.
Thanks.
Those
Other
were
questions?
those were all the questions that came in during the presentation. So if anybody has others, feel free to unmute or use the chat.
And another one is, would you guys, even if it wasn't like a full presentation, but would you like any instruction or any like a small presentation on that maybe we could even just share as a recording on how to program a shortcut? Is that something that would be helpful? I see Amy emphatically shaking her head yes, with a thumbs up. And Lee, thank you. Yep, I see that. And Kylie as well. Okay.
An ATIA presentation that wants to happen.
We've
Trust me.
already submitted all of those. We're
Oh, yeah, for this year, but
for
I mean,
this year.
it is
But
something. I'm going to just throw out one thought that is sort of random, but for those of us who chase a lot of squirrels, when you make videos, have you considered not putting music in the background? To be honest, when I'm trying to follow instructions on something and there's music in the background, I find it incredibly distracting, and sometimes it makes me miss a piece of what somebody said. So don't know if that's been considered, but just want to throw it out there.
Carly just gave you a heart, and she is our lady who does all of that prettiness. So we can make that happen. And we appreciate that feedback. Any other questions or things that you guys come up against, or anything else that you would like to see so that we can make sure to support you with being able to do iOS mirroring effectively? And if you can't think of it now because we've given you a lot of information, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. Do that iOS mirroring email, and Bob and I will address it for further education. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now. Oop, I guess I should do all of my fancy stuff. Thank you for joining us. If you liked our video, please like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you again.